ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar my dear friends, this is video number 8 on Panchadasi. Chapter 8, Knowledge, the means to release. Be the object of devotion the highest dharma, or be it the inert stone, it can yield only perishable fruit. Release, however, can be gained only by the knowledge of the real nature of dharma, not otherwise. The fictitious world of our dreams vanishes only on awakening. The world of all beings, divine and human, intelligent and inert, is a dream imposed upon the reality of Dharma, which is one without a second. Even Isvara and the Jiva are included in the self-feigning world fiction, the magical product of Maya. They are projected by Maya and they in their turn create their spheres. The cosmic scheme, which has its source in the divine contemplation of the Lord and its solace in its return to Him, is ordained by Him. The cycle of metapsychosis, which begins with the waking experience and comes to an end in release, is the product of the Jiva. The cosmic world is the creation of the Lord of the individual world. The Jiva is the progenitor. Those who do not know the real nature of Dharma, which is without a second and without attachment, dispute over the natures of Isvara and the Jiva, who are the figments of Maya. The seers of truth revel in the sight of those who are released and sympathize with those who are pilgrims on the path. But with the deluded they do not even converse. The theists, including the worshippers of grass, stones, etc., and the yogins, dispute over the nature of God. The materialists, the Sankhyas, and others are deluded with regard to the nature of the Jiva. So long as they do not cognize the reality of Dharma, there is no release for them, nor is there happiness, which is the gift of true knowledge. There may be for them grades of pleasure in their own field, but all that pleasure appears to be the opposite of happiness to the enlightened. The dream created difference between the wealth of the kingdoms and the woes of beggary does not affect the person who has risen from his dreams. Both appear to him to be fictions. The seer knows no distinction between worldly pleasures and pains, for in both of them he sees the sting of misery. Since disputation over the natures of Isvara and the Jiva is not the path that leads to release, those who aspire for the goal of freedom should not wend their way. They should inquire into the nature of Dharma and acquire the knowledge thereof. Dharma knowledge cannot be obtained through the physical and psychical sciences. It can be achieved only through the science of the self. Enquiry into the natures of God and the Jiva may be necessary for a keen understanding of the nature of Dharma But the enquirer should not stop with the former, for that is not his final doctrine. He must acquire the lower knowledge only to unlearn again. It may be said thus: the Sankhyas define the Jiva as the all-pervasive, unattached intelligence. The Yogins define Ishvara to be all-pervasive and unattached. The meaning which these philosophers give is identical with the purport of the words that and thou. Then why should the concept of God and the Jiva be abandoned? To this the reply is: in the doctrine of the Vedanta, that and thou are not different. Further, the Sankhya Yoga conception is defective in many ways. The Sankhya view of the plurality of Purushas and the Yoga concept of God as primus inter pares are glaring examples of self-contradiction. The Vedantic doctrine uses the words that and thou only in order to establish the fact that both of them denote a single reality. The deluded people perceive difference between Ishvara and the Jiva. If the Vedantin undertakes an enquiry into the nature of Ishvara and the Jiva, it is only to refute the alleged difference between them. The example of the fourfold division of ether was given in order to elucidate the doctrine of identity and to teach that the apparent division in the homogeneous self is the product of ignorance. Water ether and cloud ether are dependent on their respective adjuncts. Water and cloud. Their substrates, port ether and ether at large, are unaffected by the adjuncts. They are pure and unmodified. Isvara and the Jiva are conditioned by their adjuncts, Maya and the intellect, but their substrates, Kutastha and Brahma, are pure and undefined. Thus, in the investigation into the natures of Ishvara and the Jiva, the Sankhya and the Yoga systems are no doubt useful. But in that sense, even the Lokayata doctrine that the physical body is the self is helpful. Points of difference between the Vedanta and the Sankhya Yoga systems there are many. The latter fight shy of their own logic and stop short of its inevitable conclusions. Quite irrationally, they maintain the doctrines of the plurality of Purushas and of the reality of the world. The Yoga upholds the theory that Ishvara is quite different from the world and the Jiva. If these three wrong notions be discarded, then the Sankhya Yoga systems would be in perfect agreement with the Vedanta. If, as the Sankhya's maintain, release be the fruit of the knowledge that the Jiva is by nature unattached, then even by the knowledge that garland, sandal paste, etc. are real, one may claim to be released, for in truth, non-attachment, like reality, is a characteristic of the Absolute alone. What the Vedanta proclaims is not that the perishable Jiva and other empirical objects are unattached and real, but that Brahma alone is real and unattached. If it be objected that though the unreality of garland, etc., is true to say that the jiva is bound by attachment is not valid. We reply that it is not so. Even as garland, etc., are unreal, the jiva is attached to the world and Ishvara by virtue of its inherent relations to them. Prakriti procures for the jiva attachment and Ishvara impels it to activity, and so long as the causes of attachment and activity are not discarded, there can be no release for the jiva. If it be said by the follower of the Sankhya system that activity and attachment are products of nescience, then he would be embracing the doctrine of Maya. With the Vedantin, he would have to agree that primal nescience, which is of the nature of an existent, is the cause of the world and that it is removable only by the light of Brahma knowledge. It may be said that on the Advaita theory of unitary self, the restriction of bondage and release is unintelligible, and that the view of a plurality of Atmans rectifies this defect. This is not sound, for Maya is the principle which places the restriction even on one and the same self. Maya makes the impossible possible. Hence, it is no wonder that it should be the agent of both bondage and release, which are not real in the absolute sense. When it is declared that bondage is unreal, then even release must be fictitious, for there can be release only for the bound. The Smriti declares the supreme truth. There is no destruction, no origination, there is none who is bound, none to indulge in religious practices. There is no one who longs for release, nor is there anyone who is released. Maya is the Kamadhenu, whose cows are the Jiva and Isvara, drinking freely the milk of duality, but the real is non dual, homogeneous, and eternal. Even the distinction between the Kutastha and Brahma is not real, it is but nominal. Indeed, there is no difference between the pot ether and ether at large. Ether is the same whether in the pot or out of it. There is no difference in Brahma. There is no distinction in it. The Sat without a second, which existed prior to creation, exists even now in the same condition and will continue to be so at the time of release too. It was, is, and ever will be one without a second, where there is only one Maya presents plurality and deludes the human minds. The delusion of duality and the travails of transmigration are the products of new science. Even some of those who have realized the futility of Maya and the sole reality of Brahma are observed to be involved in empirical affairs, but their activity is dependent only upon such of their past deeds which have begun to take effect, and they do not identify themselves with their actions. Of them, it is true to say that they live in the world but are not of it. The conviction of the deluded is that the transmigratory existence which belongs both to this world and to the next is absolutely real. They assert that the non dual self neither appears nor exists. The conviction of the knowers, on the contrary, is quite the reverse. To them, the existence of the self is the surest of all facts, and its experience most intimate and undeniable. While the ignorant feel that they are bound, the enlightened know that they are ever free. Chapter 9, Self-Inquiry. If it be said that the non-dual is not the object of immediate experience, we reply that it is not so. For the non-dual reality manifests itself in the form of self-luminous intelligence. If it be said that the non-dual self does not manifest itself in its entirety, then this defect is common even to the world of dualities, which is not presented in its entirety. If partial manifestation be true of the latter, then even of the former it is true. If it be said that while duality is cognized, there can be no non-duality, the Vedantin might say as well that while non-duality is patent, the dual throngs cannot be real. Duality is unreal because it is of the nature of Maya. Hence, by elimination, the real non-dual Sat alone shines. Understanding the world to be of the form of indeterminable Maya, the absolute reality of the non-dual self is to be realized. Even after such determination, if the world of duality presents itself, enquiry must again be conducted so that the delusive character of the world may be clearly discerned. This inquiry cannot be painful, for it is the cause of the removal of all pain. There can be no time limit to it, for with the rise of Dharma knowledge it ceases by itself. A person may be fed up with empirical learning, but he cannot be tired of self-inquiry and self-knowledge. If it be said that one experiences hunger, thirst, etc., even after gaining Brahma knowledge, we reply that there is a difference. The attitude of the enlightened soul towards those activities is thoroughly changed. After enlightenment, he loses all conceit in them. They remain only as the functions of egoity. If there be the contingence of the superimposition of hunger, etc., on the self-intelligence through unreal identity, then by discriminative knowledge, the superimposition is to be removed. If on account of beginningless residual impressions, superimposition occurs all of a sudden, the right antidote to it is keen and constant discrimination. Because the delusiveness of the world of duality is determined through the discrimination, it cannot be said that the knowledge of the illusory character of the world is the product of reasoning. For the nature of the world is unthinkable, indeterminable, and it is cognized only by the all-witness self. Like the world, even the self is unthinkable, but the former is unthinkable because it is delusive in nature, and the latter because it is eternal and ever present. Since there is no experience of the prior non-existence of intelligence, the intelligent self is eternal. The prior existence of duality, however, is experienced by the self. It is the witness of darkness, witness of everything, the world of duality which has prior non-existence is a product like pot, etc. But its production is unthinkable and illusory like magic. Intelligence is immediately experienced, and the word's illusoriness is experienced by intelligence. Hence, it is a contradiction to say that the non developed self intelligence is not immediately experienced. There are some people who know this truth and yet are dissatisfied. Their dissatisfaction is born of insufficient inquiry. There are learned men even among the Charvakas and others, but their belief in the theory that the body is the self is the outcome of their incomplete learning and unfinished inquiry. If it be said that the Charvakas etc. do not have clear discrimination because of the defects of their intellects, then even others who are dissatisfied remain in that condition because they have no insight into the real purport of the sacred teaching. Chapter 10, Fruit of Inquiry. The fruit of inquiry is declared by Scripture thus: when the desires which reside in his heart leave him, then this human becomes immortal, and here he attains Brahma. The removal of the roots of all misery and pain, viz. Avidya, Kama, and Karma, and the realization of identity with Brahma are the fruit of self-inquiry. The desires are of the form of the notes of the heart. For the remaining portion of the Shruti reads, when all the notes of the heart are cut. Desire arises when, through ignorance, egoity is identified with the intelligent self, and this identification is spoken of as the note of the heart. If the intelligent self be not identified with egoity, then even by 1,000 desires there would be no harm done to the knowledge of the self and the state of release. There are three kinds of superimposed identity. The superimposition of identity between the reflection of intelligence and egoity is natural. The identity between the present body and egoity is the product of previous deeds, and it will be dissolved when the deeds have spent their effect. The third kind of identity is that between egoity and the intelligence self. It is the third that binds and brings misery and pain. When the third knot is cut by the sword of knowledge, the first two would be ineffective to cripple the soul. Even after the knot is cut, there may arise desires on account of the karma which has begun to take effect. But it does not affect the self since it is recognized to belong to egoity. Just as the disease of the body and the destruction of the trees, etc., do not condition the self, desire, etc., which are inherent in egoity, do not affect the intelligent self. If it be said that even prior to the cutting of the knot, the self was unattached, it is quite true. The self was, is, and ever will be untouched by blemishes. But it is just this knowledge of the self that is called the cutting of the knot. The ignorant do not know that the self is unattached. They are bound by the knot of ignorance. The enlightened know the truth, and hence they are free from the knot. There is no difference whatever between the ignorant and the enlightened in the matter of the activity of the body, senses, mind, intellect, etc. Between a boy who does not study the Veda and a student of the Veda, there is no difference in the matter of food, etc. But the only difference is that which is created by the non study or the study of the Veda. Even so, the difference between the ignorant and the enlightened depends upon the non-knowledge or the knowledge of Dharma. The knower does not hate the pains that befall him, nor does he desire the pleasure that have forsaken him. He remains like one indifferent to both pleasure and pain. Thus the Gita describes the state of him who has cut the knot of ignorance. It cannot be said that the verse of the Gita is injunctive of indifference, for there is the contingence of the futility of the particle what they like. The Gita does not recommend a state of inertia to the knower. The body, mind, etc. of the enlightened seer do not stop functioning. If they did so, then Brahma knowledge would not be a blessing but only a disease, and those who regard Brahma knowledge as a wasting melody are indeed dunces par excellence. If it be said that, according to the traditional code, knowers like Bharta were without any activity, then according to a well-known scriptural passage, the Jnani eats, sports and amuses himself and yet is unaffected by his activities. Bharta and others did not remain without food, etc., like stones and stocks for the fear of attachment. They were indifferent to the affairs of the world. Indeed, he who has attachment is troubled, and he who is free from attachment enjoys happiness. Hence, by him who desires happiness, attachment of every kind must be relinquished. The uninformed find no difference between the activities of the ignorant and the enlightened, and they regard the latter as indistinguishable from the former. But that is not the intention of scripture. The activities of both the Agyanin and Gyani may be alike, but there is a wide gulf between them in respect of their attitude to those activities. This is the final doctrine. Non-attachment, knowledge and withdrawal of the senses are helpful to one another. Mostly they are found together, and only in rare cases they are seen apart. The cause, nature and product, however, of non-attachment, etc. are different. By a thorough inquiry into the purport of the sacred teaching, this is clearly to be understood. The sight of defects, the desire to be free from them, and independence of the objects of enjoyment are respectively the particular cause, nature, and product of non-attachment. Hearing, contemplation, and meditation are the cause of knowledge. Knowledge is of the form of the discrimination between the real and the illusory. Its fruit is the non-rise again of the knots of the heart, control, etc. Restraint of restraint of the intellect and the reduction of activities are respectively the cause, nature, and product of uparti. Of the three non-attachment, knowledge and uparti, knowledge is the principal since it is the direct instrument to release. The other two are auxiliaries to it. If all the three are at the same time on the verge of fruition, then it must be due to a great store of merit. But in some cases, owing to previous demerit, one or the other of them get obstructed, and when the obstruction is removed, there is the free flow of the triple stream. Even though non-attachment and uparti be complete, if knowledge be obstructed, then there would be no release. But one whose way to knowledge is so obstructed need not despair. On the strength of his austerities, he attains the status of the virtuous whence the way is easy to heaven of knowledge. On the other hand, if knowledge be complete, release is certain, although the other two auxiliaries may be arrested on account of obstruction. The visible pain of this world may pertain to him whose knowledge is complete, but whose non-attachment and uparti are incomplete, but nevertheless he is assured of release. Non-attachment consists in regarding even the Brahma Loka as but a straw. Knowledge will be complete when it is realized without a shadow of doubt that the true knowledge of the self is Brahmahood. The limit of uparti is complete forgetfulness like unto that of sleep. Desire, etc., are dependent on the acts which have begun to bear fruit, hence they cannot obstruct the path to release. Those who are released are found to indulge in activities, but in fact it is not the act. Their prarabdha produces activity so that it may spend itself out, though their activities may differ according to their different prarabdhas. Knowledge is common to them all and also release. This is the central theme of the present chapter. Like the pictures on the canvas, the world is imposed by Maya on the self-intelligence. Discarding the world, the pure intelligence must be realized. By regarding this chapter and understanding its purport, one can well see how the universe is illusory and how the non-dual Sat alone is absolutely real. Note A. Bharti Tirtha Vidyarnaya states that the reflection of intelligence in the residual impressions of the intellect is Isvara. This view, according to Nischal Dasa, is not sound. He argues in the Virti Prabhakara as follows. What is the adjunct of Isvara? Number one, is it bare nescience? Number two, or is it nescience which is conjoined with impressions? Three, or is it residual impressions alone? If number one, if it be the first, then it contradicts the statement that Isvara is the reflection of intelligence in the nescience which is conjoined with the impressions of intellect. Number two, on the second alternative, it is useless to say that the reflection is in nescience which is conjoined with the impressions of the intellect. If it be said that the impressions of the intellect are admitted to be the attributes of nescience, so that Ishvara's omniscience may be accounted for, it does not stand to reason. By the presence of the sattva constituent in nescience itself, Ishvara's omniscience is intelligible, and so there is no need for assumption of residual impressions. Moreover, the impressions of the intellect cannot account for omniscience. Each of the impressions cannot be all cognizant. Omniscience will be Omniscience will be intelligible only when all the impressions go to constitute the attribute of nescience. This is possible only at the time of deluge, parlaya. Hence, to say that nescience qualified by the impressions of the intellect is the adjunct of Isvara is not sound. 3. If bare impressions be the adjunct of Isvara, A is the reflection in each of the impressions Isvara, B, or is Isvara the reflection in all the impressions, A. On the first case, since the impressions of the intellects of Jiva are numerous, there must be many Iswaras, and since each of the impressions have only the finite soul as its object, the reflection of intelligence in it cannot be omniscient. B. If it be said that in all the impressions there is only one reflection and that is God, except at the time of Parlaya, simultaneous existence of all the impressions is not possible. Therefore, the adjunct of Ishvara is bare nescience. Even in the Panchadasi at other places, Maya is declared to be the adjunct of Ishvara. Nescience is the adjunct and not the impressions of the intellect. By residual impression, what is meant here is the sattva constituent alone of nescience. It is called vasana so that it may be easily understood by the reader, or it may be for the purpose of instructing that Jiva and Ishvara are non-different, that the nescience of sleep is said to be not different from the cosmic nescience. Note B. Nishchal Dasa criticizes the view that the Anandamaya is the Ishvara, the internal organ which is qualified by the gross reflection in waking and dream is called Vidyarnaya. The same Vidyarnaya Jiva in a subtle state in sleep is called Anandamaya. If the Anandamaya is Ishvara, then in waking and dream there would be no Ishvara, since from these two states the Anandmaya is absent, and further there must be a separate Ishvara for every Jiva in sleep. In all the Vedantic texts, the Jiva is vested with five seats. Vidyarnaya himself has declared so in the Panchakosa Viveka. Hence, if we accept the view that the Lord is the Anandmaya, there would be conflict with the scriptural text. In the Mandukya Upanishad, omniscience and omnipotence are attributed to the Anandmaya. But even thus, it cannot be identical with Lord. The intention of Upanishad is this. The Jiva is of three forms, Vishwa, Tejasa and Prajna. And Ishvara is also of three forms, Virat, Hiranyagarbha and Avyaktarta. Jivahood for the Hiranyagarbha and the Virat is declared in the Upanishad. The purport of the Mandukya Upanishad is to teach that the three forms of the Jiva are not in reality different from the three forms of the Lord. And so the attributes of Ishvara like omniscience etc. are taught to be the qualities of Anandamaya as well. The purport of the Upanishad is not that the Anandamaya is Ishvara, but that both the Jiva and the Lord are to be thought of as non-different. Vidyarnaya's intention is also the same, for in the Brahmananda, he declared that the seat of Ananda is one of the states of Jiva. So I stop this video here. Next video, number 9, will start with chapter 7. Elucidation of containment. Tirupati Deepa Prakarna. So thank you my dear friends for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks. Namaskar.